I thought I knew exactly who Ashley was, the woman I planned to spend the rest of my life with. Then, one ordinary Tuesday, a stranger looked me in the eyes and said something that shattered everything I believed. I laughed it off for 3 seconds, before realizing he wasn't joking.
My name is Ryan, and until that moment, I believed trust was something you built brick by brick over years. Looking back now, I realize betrayal doesn't arrive like a thunderstorm. It starts as a tiny crack that nobody notices until the entire foundation gives way.
Ashley and I had been together for almost 5 years. We met at a neighborhood coffee shop where she accidentally grabbed my drink instead of hers. We laughed, shared a table, exchanged numbers, and somehow that random mistake became the beginning of our love story.
Life wasn't perfect, but it felt real. We rented a cozy apartment, argued about whose turn it was to cook, binged crime documentaries every weekend, and dreamed about buying a house someday. Every ordinary moment made me believe I'd already found my forever.
Ashley always knew how to make difficult days disappear. Whenever work overwhelmed me, she'd leave little handwritten notes inside my lunch bag or surprise me with my favorite takeout. I never questioned her loyalty because she'd spent years convincing me she was the safest place I'd ever known.
Everything changed after she accepted a promotion at work. The new position demanded longer hours, unexpected meetings, and occasional weekend projects. I wanted to support her career, so I ignored the lonely dinners and late-night excuses, telling myself success always required sacrifice. The first red flag wasn't dramatic. One evening, Ashley walked into our apartment smiling while texting someone. The smile disappeared the second she noticed me watching. She locked her phone without another word and kissed my cheek like nothing unusual had happened. I asked who she'd been talking to. She answered almost too quickly, saying it was just a coworker discussing tomorrow's presentation. Her explanation sounded reasonable, yet something inside me whispered that she'd rehearsed those words before I even asked the question. Over the next few weeks, little things kept piling up. She started carrying her phone everywhere, even into the bathroom. Notifications suddenly disappeared from her lock screen. Whenever I entered the room unexpectedly, she'd tilt the screen away without realizing I noticed. I hated the person I was becoming. Every suspicious thought made me feel guilty because Ashley had never given me a reason to doubt her before. I convinced myself that insecurity was poisoning my mind, and that trust meant believing someone even when fear appeared. One Friday night, Ashley told me she'd be working late with her team to finish an important project. Around 10, I decided to surprise her with coffee. I figured everyone would appreciate the caffeine after such a long day. When I arrived outside her office building, the parking lot looked almost empty. The security guard politely informed the entire marketing department had left hours earlier. He even checked the employee log just to make sure he wasn't mistaken. I sat inside my car, staring at the building for nearly 20 minutes. My heart wanted to believe there had been a misunderstanding, but my mind kept replaying the guard's words. Ashley wasn't inside that office. She was somewhere else. When she finally came home after midnight, she looked exhausted. Before I could ask anything, she launched into a detailed story about presentations, software problems, and delayed reports. The explanations sounded polished, almost like she'd practiced every sentence during the drive home. I smiled, hugged her, and pretended everything was normal. That decision haunted me later because it gave her confidence that I still believed every word. Meanwhile, the questions inside my head only grew louder with each passing day. The stranger who changed everything appeared 2 weeks later. I was grabbing lunch when a man approached my table and asked if I was Ryan. His voice sounded hesitant, like he wasn't sure whether speaking to me was the right decision. He introduced himself as Daniel. He apologized before saying anything else, which instantly made my stomach tighten. Then he quietly asked whether Ashley and I were still together because she told him we had broken up months ago.
For a moment, I couldn't process the words. Daniel looked genuinely confused when I explained we still live together. His face turned pale. He reached into his pocket, unlocked his phone, and showed me pictures of him and Ashley together.
The photos weren't intimate enough to prove an affair, but they showed dinners, concerts, weekend trips, and smiling faces that belonged to people building something serious. My chest felt hollow as I realized those memories overlapped with weekends Ashley claimed she was visiting family.
Daniel wasn't angry at me. He looked devastated because he'd been manipulated too. Ashley had introduced him to friends, talked about future vacations, and repeatedly insisted her previous relationship had ended long before they met. We were both living inside different versions of the same lie. Instead of confronting Ashley immediately, I asked Daniel if he'd be willing to help me understand the truth. He agreed without hesitation because he needed answers just as badly as I did. Neither of us wanted revenge. We wanted reality. Over the following days, we compared timelines, receipts, and conversations. Every puzzle piece fit together with horrifying precision. Whenever Ashley claimed she was traveling for work, she was actually spending time with Daniel. Whenever she told him she was busy with family, she was home with me. The double life she'd created required incredible planning. Separate stories, separate schedules, separate promises. Somehow, she'd managed to keep two relationships alive without either of us realizing the full picture. I couldn't decide what hurt more, the affair itself or the endless deception behind it. One evening, I found Ashley quietly smiling at another message while we watched television together. She noticed me looking and immediately slipped her phone face down onto the couch. I realized I was sitting inches away from someone I barely recognized anymore. That night, sleep never came. I kept replaying every anniversary, every vacation, every promise she'd whispered while holding my hand. I wondered how many of those moments were genuine and how many were performances meant to keep me from asking difficult questions. Daniel suggested confronting her together, but I needed one final answer first. I wanted to know whether she'd ever intended to tell me the truth, or if she planned to continue lying until someone eventually exposed everything. The opportunity came unexpectedly. Ashley left her laptop open while taking a shower. I didn't want to invade her privacy, yet part of me knew our relationship had already crossed that line. One unread email caught my attention immediately. It wasn't romantic, it was practical. Ashley had been discussing apartment listings in another city with a recruiter because she'd accepted a new job offer. She planned to move within 2 months, without ever mentioning it to me. The email included a sentence I'll never forget. It read, "Once the move is official, ending things with Ryan will be much easier." Reading those words hurt more than discovering the affair, because they revealed how carefully she'd planned my replacement. I closed the laptop and stared at our apartment. Every photo on the wall suddenly felt fake. Every shared dream became another prop inside a story that only one of us truly believed. My grief slowly transformed into calm determination. The next evening, I invited Ashley to dinner at home. She smiled, completely unaware that I already knew everything. We talked about work, weekend plans, and random memories, while she comfortably built one final layer onto months of deception. After dessert, I placed Daniel's printed photographs on the table without saying a word. Ashley's smile vanished instantly. She looked at the pictures, then at me, searching desperately for an explanation that didn't exist. At first, she denied everything. She claimed Daniel was just a friend, then insisted the photos were misunderstood. When I mentioned the apartment email, the confidence disappeared from her face. Silence filled the room, because even she couldn't invent another believable story. Finally,
Ashley admitted she'd been seeing Daniel for almost a year. She said she never planned for things to become serious, but one lie had forced another, until she couldn't find a way out. I listened without interrupting, because apologies couldn't repair what was already broken. I asked one simple question. At what point did you stop loving me? Ashley started crying before quietly admitting she didn't know the answer. Somehow, that uncertainty hurt even more than hearing a definite date or reason.
I packed a small bag that night and walked out without raising my voice. The silence between us felt heavier than any argument ever could. Sometimes, the strongest goodbye isn't shouted. Sometimes, it's simply choosing never to accept another lie. Daniel and I spoke one final time the next day. Neither of us blamed the other because we'd both been victims of the same manipulation. We wished each other well, shook hands, and walked away carrying different pieces of the same heartbreak. The months that followed weren't easy. Healing never happens overnight, especially after trusting someone so completely. But little by little, I stopped asking why Ashley betrayed me and started asking how I could rebuild the life I'd almost forgotten belonged to me. Today, I don't tell this story because I want sympathy. I tell it because countless people ignore tiny warning signs while desperately protecting the version of love they hope still exists. Sometimes, facing painful truth is the first step toward genuine freedom.
If this story reminded you to trust your instincts without losing your kindness, then it was worth sharing. Let me know in the comments what you would have done in my place. And don't forget to subscribe, because sometimes the hardest stories teach us the strongest lessons.